Should Rey appear in Star Wars Starfighter? There's been a rumor going around that Rey will appear at the end of the new Starfighter movie. So, let's get into it. Welcome to the Calm Cantina, where everyone's thoughts and opinions are welcome, even if you like The Last Jedi. I know, there's some of you out there, and you're still welcome here, even if I don't agree with you. Because at the end of the day, we're all Star Wars fans, and everybody comes together, shares their joy and their passion for Star Wars. So if you're someone who enjoys Star Wars, make sure you hit the subscribe button, hit the like button on this video, and let's get into this discussion. So there's been a rumor, as I was saying, about Rey appearing at the end of Star Wars Starfighter. And to me personally, I think this would be a good thing. I do think Rey was one of the better things to come out of the sequel trilogy. I think that Daisy Ridley did all she could with the direction that they took her character. You know, it's not her fault that they brought back Palpatine. It's not her fault that Luke was a hermit on some other planet while she was going through her own adventure. I really like that she's just kind of this almost like she was a nobody. Of course, they ended up giving her a name and all of that, but how they just she created her own way. She had her own path, and I think really a lot of the problems with the sequel trilogy, at least in my opinion, are with how they treated a lot of the OG characters and how they destroyed, I feel like, and did some character assassination, at least in my opinion, to some of those characters. But as far as like Daisy Ridley and her character and Adam Driver and Kylo Ren, I think those are the two bright spots of the sequel trilogy. And if Disney wants to hold on and still kind of push what they have created in a way, if they can make good stories in continuation of this, like the new Jedi Order movie, which is supposed to be coming out, I do think that this would be a very smart thing to put Rey at the end of Starfighter. Now, a lot of people are immediately discounting this movie because of this rumor, which, again, I don't agree with, because if Starfighter ends up being a banger of a movie and it ends up being really good, which I've started to get excited for it, it has Matt Smith, Mia Goth, there's a lot to like here. I at least feel that way. Like when you watch Matt Smith in House of the Dragon, that alone can make you excited for this movie. But like, if Starfighter is a good movie, not even a great movie, a good movie, I think that's a step in the right direction currently for the Star Wars franchise, because I do think the Star Wars franchise, as far as the Disney era, I think it's at all-time lows right now. I think even if you look at YouTube creation or content creation, if you look at all of these different things, like it is rough when it comes to Star Wars. It's almost like it's dead. I mean, it's not. It's still a big franchise with tons of fans. Like Star Wars Celebration is going to be crazy. But man, you really hope that we can pick this up and push Star Wars to those all-time highs. But going back to the point of this and discussing if Rey should appear in Starfighter, I do think that they should do this, especially if they're planning on doing episode 10, 11, and 12 with Rey's character. Now, I think the good thing that the Starfighter movie has going for it is that you don't know what's going to happen. They haven't explored this new era of Star Wars yet. It's supposed to take place, or the rumor is that it takes place 5 years after Rise of Skywalker, which is uncharted territory. We don't know anything about 5 years later. We can assume that Rey has continued her Jedi teachings and maybe matured with the Force. She was already pretty powerful. So she's, of course, probably going to be the Jedi Master and take up that Yoda role. How long do we continue her story? That's another thing, right? Like, is there going to be another catalysmic, or how would you even say that, major event at the end of this trilogy? Like with Revenge of the Sith, of course, you had where, you know, there was just Order 66. Like, who's the villains in this new trilogy? There's a lot that we just have no idea. Like, there's nothing known about this. They can go any direction that they want. They could even say, hey, look, we're actually planning for a 6-movie story. They don't have to flat out tell us that. They can say we're doing a trilogy, because Star Wars, that's the theme with Star Wars, is trilogies. But there's a like I guess at the point I'm trying to make is this is uncharted territory. And so that means that there could actually be higher stakes in these movies. They have set up some stuff where if they wanted to potentially explore it, like Darth Talon from the Maul series. I feel like that's something where, you know, her species does live long enough to where they could make Rey have to fight Darth Talon. That to me could be interesting, and maybe she teams up with Ahsoka, or maybe Ahsoka dies in this. Like, they're talking about the Force gods and stuff. Maybe she dies in that story. But I do think killing off Ahsoka's character at some point would be beneficial to the franchise instead of dragging out these characters. There does need to be some sort of consequence or some sort of stakes, and I think that would be a huge thing to show stakes for. I mean, Ahsoka is Filoni's baby, so I don't know that will happen, but somewhere along there, we got to have some stakes, right? And in Filoni's plan, he did say that he wants super high stakes. Like, every movie needs to have high stakes. And so we need to actually start killing some people, right? If a Jedi gets stabbed by a lightsaber, or if anybody gets stabbed by a lightsaber, Reva, Sabine, they need to be dead. So going back to, I keep getting sidetracked and I go on these tangents, but, you know, this is basically showing, with it being uncharted territory, that they can do anything they want. They are now creating this whole new universe beyond the original trilogy, beyond the sequel trilogy even now, so they can kind of reset things. And so I think, and I hope that Disney has, you know, taken some steps to look at themselves in the mirror and say, did we really just kill this franchise, or is it possible to bring it back? Some people say it's not possible to bring Star Wars back, which I think it is. If you make good stories, anything's possible. You know, I mean, look at Andor. Like, if they could produce a show like Andor, or a movie, I guess, like Andor with Jedi, I think that's why Andor isn't as popular, because there's no Jedi. There's nothing that, like, when people think Star Wars, they think Jedis, the Force, all of that. And I do think that's a major reason why The Mandalorian and Grogu did not do as good as it could have, because it doesn't have any Jedi. Now, I do think Grogu will eventually become a Jedi, but I think that's part of the reason that Mandalorian and Grogu failed. And also, people assume it's a streaming TV show, like it's going to hit streaming pretty quickly after it's in the theaters, and I think that contribute a lot to the demise, unfortunately, of The Mandalorian and Grogu. But now, with there being no stories written, we don't really have any lore, you know, the legends are not canon anymore. We don't have any lore beyond this. And I would love to see them maybe explore Darth Talon as the new villain, but who's going to be the villain? Who rises? Who, you know, there's a lot of unknowns at this point. And I would hope maybe even that the Ahsoka trilogy, or Ahsoka series, not trilogy, starts to tie into some of the sequel stuff. I think they need to make the TV shows somewhat applied to the movies. They haven't applied to the movies like whatsoever, as far as like the overarching goal. These stories need to be more complete, and I think that's the way they'll go. And I really hope that the Maul series starts to tie in. We're getting a season 2. There's a lot, I think, and a lot of potential, at least here, that they could potentially do. And so I think, again, I think it's good that Rey is going to be, or potentially be, in Starfighter. And I think then at that point now we can start to build upon the story, build upon what's next, because we really don't know too much about what's next. And again, like I said, I think she was one of the better things about the sequel trilogy, her and Adam Driver. And I know a lot of people are, sad that the movie The Hunt for Ben Solo got canceled, but look, he was an unhinged student. I don't know how good you could have made that movie to where it made sense. I probably need to read up on what the potential plot was for it, because there was a petition for it. But again, you kind of know the result in the end of that story. And I am really looking forward to Star Wars, where we really don't know the end result and where everything is going. Regardless, I do hope they can start to create new stories, and maybe they'll do a Knights of the Old Republic. I don't know why they're so afraid to do the Old Republic stuff eventually, but I do think we're going to get episode 10, 11, and 12, as a lot of the leaks suggest. So I do think Rey being in this movie is going to be a good thing. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Hit the like button on this video and make sure to subscribe if you haven't already.